is how did you kind of first get started in this industry in general? And I think one or two of you had a specific a dedicated internship, perhaps as an undergrad, and you could speak to that as well. Um, does anyone want to start on that one in particular, kind of how you got started?
I can definitely start on this, especially because a lot of it is because of University at Albany and the communications major. So my senior year, the second semester, we were awarded the opportunity of being able to intern. And then so I utilized the fact that I lived in the city and applied for internships the fall semester, first spring semester. And this allowed me to have an internship, my first internship within the fashion industry, which is sort of where my expertise lies within communication. And from that internship, which I was able to have due to the privilege of being able to go back home into the city away from Albany, where sort of this is the more so the mecca of that industry. From that, I was able to leverage my network, and that also led me to my following job that I was able to have after for post grad. So I would say that a lot of it circles around just from that, stemming from that opportunity and all that I was able to learn at UAlbany.
Building off of that, I'm sure, and I hope, sure they do. Albany still does this, but I was in the communications department, like I'm sure many of us were. And I remember there were periodic emails sent out of different internship opportunities within Albany, Albany, the city, not the college. And I remember I started interning between sophomore and junior year, and I applied to every single internship so that by the time I graduated, I had about 10 internships completed with 2 to 3 different versions of a resume, depending on which field I wanted to enter. And it was actually in the city of Albany that I had my first PR internship. And that's where I fell in love with this field. Not exactly the clients that I loved, but I really liked the type of work that I was doing.
So it sounds like your approach to really getting that first or those first few internships was just apply a lot and kind of take the opportunities that came your way. Diamond, was your approach similar or different? You mentioned, an internship in the fashion industry.
Well,
How
my
you?
industry is sort of different in the sense that I also interned while I was in Albany, but they're very particular about what they consider experience. So I interned within there was like a political communications internship I did. But to be honest, this is a very based industry on who do you know, and that you get like the day to day and the terminologies. So it kind of wasn't as applicable. What I would say was the great things that I was able to learn from those internships helped me, but not exactly having those internships, like for my particular industry.
Okay, thank you. Christina or Dhani, did you want to add to anything that's been said?
Yeah. Just in terms of, where we got started, I definitely leaned on the communications department, referring to my advisor, asking for advice. I remember being given like a packet of companies in the Albany area that were looking for interns, and I remember being diligent in applying, making sure my resume was up to date, making visits to the career center to make sure my resume actually looked the way it was supposed to look. And I actually interned at Baker Public Relations in Albany. That was my first internship. And I made a lot of good connections there and actually ended up working there after graduation, and staying in Albany for a little bit longer while I, took the time to work my way up and learn the building blocks of the industry and really fine tune my skills before coming down to the city and kind of switching things up a bit.
I was the same exact path as Dhani mentioned. I actually got my internship my senior year as well as my first full-time job out post-graduation from the communications department's email blast, networking. Professor Husson actually provided me with the referral to my job that I had at the New York State Thruway Authority and Canal Corporation. I think it's just so imperative to take advantage of those opportunities. Like Dhani mentioned, I did stay in Albany after graduation. I'm from northern New Jersey. Actually went to UAlbany for soccer to play on the soccer team. So, I really thought it was imperative to take advantage of the communications department and the connections that I had made, especially through being there through my master's degree too. So I think that we all pretty much said it, that the email blasts, the communications that were sent through the department were really immensely helpful and brought specific companies and organizations that we never knew about, and just going to school there but not really, being experts on the area really helped to grasp the opportunities that were available, and then that worked into something bigger for us, which was great.
Thank you. Beyond so the internship obviously sounds very important in building connections. Beyond those opportunities, are there things that students can and should be doing now to prepare for a career in PR? And I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, particular courses or developing particular skill sets that you think would help them sell themselves or break into the industry.
I don't know about specific courses. I'm too old to remember the classes, but two things I would say that I would recommend. One, any writing experience that you can possibly get while you're in college, do that. I actually started contributing for free at this like startup newspaper, digital newspaper, when I was a sophomore or junior. That became Elite Daily. And that was just something to put on my resume in terms of writing. Also, network. There's actually no excuse not to be networking early. Everyone has access to a computer through school or at home, and you can make a LinkedIn account. If you don't have one already, you're behind. So just make a LinkedIn profile, and honestly, find people in the jobs that you want to have one day. DM them, message them on LinkedIn, and ask them for 15 minutes of their time for a virtual coffee chat. And don't be discouraged by people not answering you. Some people are just busy, but there are a lot of people out there who are going to take the time to answer you. And it's never too early to start building your own professional network.
Just to build off of what Michael said, I would definitely agree with writing being a very useful skill to have, especially coming into the industry. I know that when we're looking for account coordinators and interns, we're definitely looking for any kind of experience that would point to strong writing skills. I remember when I was in UAlbany or at UAlbany, I took a lot of journalism classes that would kind of force me to get that journalistic style of writing and give me practice there. So in terms of coursework to look for, I'd recommend that.
So writing, any other skill sets, so any collaborative work or working on teams or any other things that you might want to try to build to put on your resume?
I think the team component and collaboration is key also, because the PR industry is we all have different jobs and different angles at it, but it's very interpersonal. You have to be able to speak with people, speak with clients, negotiate. It's all client facing, and the client is usually making the client happy is the end goal at 90% of the professional jobs that we have these days. So I think that's important. And just going along with what Michael said, reiterating the importance of networking on LinkedIn, and in your life, people who are in the industry, pick their brain. A lot of who is how you get your foot in the door, like Diamond mentioned for the fashion industry too. If you have a connection that can help you, take advantage of it. Don't be professional about it, but on LinkedIn, there's so many resources that you can just filters and searches where you can pinpoint where the city, the target state, and the industry, and then it pinpoints you to specific individuals or companies. So it really is a resourceful tool that has definitely evolved since I was in college, that I think that you can find a lot of beneficial opportunities and really take advantage of.
Awesome. So kind of fast forwarding in time, what does a typical day kind of look like for you work-wise? Diamond, do you mind sharing?
Yeah, of course. I would say the reason why I got into the position I got into is that I need my days to not look alike, and they completely do not. I would be extremely, it's already like a job that, is, taxing, but it's rewarding in a sense if I had to do the same thing over and over again. So I would say most of my sort of day to day relies around waking up because our headquarters is based in Milan. So sort of working on 3 time zones, but from Europe to all the way to LA. So keeping that in mind and kind of managing those conversations, especially within the Americas also, and keeping in mind those regions as well. Typically try to touch base with other individuals on my team, depending on the day and sort of what we have. And then also an important part that I kind of want to stress that people should like kind of put in their day to day is being up on industry news, understanding what's upcoming, what are the trends, what's happening, just educating yourself. I remember when I was an assistant, my boss told me to carve out time for that. I was like, are you like crazy? Like, where am I finding time for this? And he's like, whether you're commuting on the train, to just wake up 15 minutes earlier, like it is important because you need to have this knowledge, especially to be an expert in this field and to also understand how to apply it and to know what's coming and to be able to anticipate. So I would just flag that as an important thing to start to sort of embed into your day to day from now. And then also dealing with building out, after meeting with the team and understanding sort of like what our budgets are, having conversations with external partners to be able to build partnerships throughout the year is like a key moment. Touching base with our agencies throughout the days, day to days to make sure that these tasks are carried out. And then throughout the day, things happen, such as today, there was a situation, which I'm sure some people may be familiar with within like the celebrity world, that happened from a TikTok drama. So you kind of are dealing with like a crisis PR at this moment because you have like, an announcement coming out or a new like content that's going live. So you have to set back live dates. So it's sort of a mixture of things day to day, depending on where we are in the quarter and also what is happening in the real world and external factors.
I just want to like build off of not go into my day to day, but build off of something that Diamond just said that I feel like resonated so much was staying on top of industry trends. And to her point, we can all be doing this. I have always been really attracted to roles where you have to be a little bit scrappier. So not always working with tons of budget in the millions of dollars. So I love real world examples with my students. So a quick example was, if anyone's unfamiliar, I work at OkCupid. It's a very crowded a very crowded space. There's over 1,500 dating apps right now. Our core product differentiator is in-app matching questions. So anytime I have an opportunity to tell a story that drives back to our key product differentiator is a huge win. So a few weeks ago, I was on the couch on a Friday night. I swear I'm normally cool. I'm not. And I was thinking about a story to tell for OkCupid, and I saw a ton of news on Twitter about ChatGPT, and I thought, okay, no dating app has actually talked about ChatGPT. How do we start talking about it? And I asked the platform to draft matching questions for us. A week later, I added in those questions to the app. I then went to a couple journalist friendlies and pitched this story about how we're the first dating app to be leveraging ChatGPT and how we're matching people all around the world. And within 3 weeks, we had feature stories in Fast Company, Mashable, CNET, TechCrunch, Business Insider, you name it, became a global story. And it was just because I was on Twitter one night, making sure I was on top of industry trends.
Excellent. And actually that does give us some insight into your day to day. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. I'll ask one more question, and then I do see a question in the Q&A, and I want to make sure we do allow a lot of time for students and participants to ask questions. So if you have them, go ahead and start populating the question and answer section down at the down below so that I can get to those in a moment. This is, I guess, a two-part question, but what do you enjoy most about your current position and the work that you do? And perhaps what do you find most challenging about your current position or the work that you do? Maybe, I don't want to put people on the spot, but Dhani, if you have an idea to share.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think the thing that I like the most about working in PR is having to stay on top of industry trends. I just feel like it's really beneficial, even outside of work, to just have a little bit of knowledge into everything that's going on in the world. Obviously, during work, you're looking for ways to apply what's going on in the world to the work that you are producing. But outside of work, it's interesting to think about how those things that are happening impact your personal life, whether it's political news going on or even, drama happening on TikTok that I can bring up in a group chat later. It's just nice to be able to get paid to stay on top of these kinds of things, I guess.
Excellent. Do you have thoughts about what's maybe most challenging?
Yes, something that's challenging. I think a challenge that we have faced at our agency is bringing a new generation of PR professionals in that haven't really ever worked in an in-person office environment. So that kind of adjustment for them has been a big one because, like I mentioned before, our schedule is hybrid. So it's interesting to have to kind of meet them where they are in terms of teaching them how to do things remotely, training them remotely. But yeah, I definitely say it's been a challenge that we've been working on.
Interesting. Yeah. Christina, do you have thoughts on sort of best and most challenging?
Yes, definitely. Well, I think I have a different angle on things because mine's more finance related. I feel like this day and age with Michael, Dhani, and Diamond, like the social media and just like the new gen, like you mentioned, the younger generations, post grads, just looking the way that they use social media was a lot different than we did, and just communication in general. I think has changed. But I think the most gratifying aspect of my job is just having confidence, whatever the industry is. You have to start somewhere and you're not going to know the answers to everything. As I mentioned, I'm in the finance industry. I don't even think I knew what a mutual fund was before I started. But I started in more of an administrative role. It starts with just 90% of it is having a positive work ethic and attitude, willingness to learn, and you can pick up a lot of the skills along the way. And I think that I found success in that, which has really been, rewarding to me looking back on my career from where I started to where I am now. One challenging aspect to us is probably the opposite on the technology. So we have an office here in New York City where I am now. We do not work remote. So the last time I worked remote, I think was Black Friday. I joke around to my friends. I'm like, yeah, I get that one day a year where I get to work from home. But in our industry, our clients want to come into the office. They want to meet, to review their finances. They want that interpersonal communication. And thankfully, a lot of us live fairly close to the city or on the outskirts, so the commute isn't too grueling or too concerning now that thankfully, hopefully, COVID is behind us. But we also have an office out in Salt Lake City. So I work for a family-run business. So it's a father-son advisor relationship, and my boss's father is out in Salt Lake, and he works just as hard as all of us, if not more, but he's 80 years old. So a lot of his clients have been with him for over 50 years. They only use email, they don't use DocuSign. So kind of trying to tailor the dual office location and make sure we're still one cohesive unit just goes to show how imperative the communication aspect of it is.
Okay.
I also wanted to add one of my favorite parts about being, especially in this role and coming off of COVID, is the brand activations that we're able to do through in the past through partnerships in some markets and then through owned events. So last year we were sponsored of Coachella. We also were a sponsor for a popular music venue in Brooklyn, Williamsburg over the summer, sponsoring their rooftop and all their events and concerts. And then we also had an owned Ray-Ban festival in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. So it's just been really interesting to lead on these activations that we've been able to do, and how there's such a need for personal connection in real life, which Christina kind of talked about from a client basis, but also from an audience basis, and also from our brand community basis and consumers. Wanted to something to be tangible and to feel the environment and the vibes and the energy of our brands, to have those like emotional connections. So to be able to witness that again come to life, especially in the last couple years where things have sort of gotten back to a new normal, has been definitely interesting, and to work with like these great external partners on building out these key moments throughout the year. I would say a challenging part, especially at my current company, is education to our internal stakeholders that aren't within our team, because oftentimes people don't understand exactly what communication is and what our roles and responsibilities are. They don't understand our verbiage, our day-to-day. So it's sort of like educating individuals that have an investment in what we do, but they don't understand exactly how we do it. And it's, in order to have, compelling, and because the budgets that we do receive are from oftentimes from external teams, but within our company. So they need to understand and educate, and we need to convince them that what we are doing is best for the brand. And whereas previously where I came from, communications department sort of ran the company, which is sort of the like basis of like more fashion in-house brands versus like something that's more corporate, like where I'm currently at.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm looking through some of the questions that have been asked. One, and this is a pretty practical question. So what tips do you have for those who are graduating this May, trying to get into the field right after graduation? The question asks about maybe when should someone start applying for jobs? What does that look like? How would you answer that?
I would spend this semester, being spring semester, networking on LinkedIn and talking to people, like I mentioned earlier. And the reason why is, to be quite honest, we're in a very turbulent job market right now. I don't want to cause panic. It just means you have to be a little bit more creative and resourceful. And what we're seeing is, at least as someone who like works in-house, is we know about open positions before they're posted on LinkedIn, before they're posted on the website. That includes internships and entry-level roles. So if you're already talking to people at all these different companies, these different agencies, somebody might really like you, and that you took that initiative to set up time with them, and they might loop you into an open role and start the interview process for you before it's even public, and the competition is a lot higher.
Yeah, and I would also piggyback off of that to say it's always best when possible to try to find an email versus applying through a portal or online. So if you can, as Michael said, just, be as strategic as possible. I've done things like search the company name, then that person's name, and Google press release, especially if they're in communications, maybe their email address is on a press release. You kind of just have to like think of ways to be resourceful, especially so you can kind of have direct contact versus like a portal. And something that maybe isn't exactly a strategic tip, but just, give yourself grace. I remember when I graduated, and at first I didn't immediately have a job, and obviously there were other individuals in my class that already knew where they were going to work, and like just give yourself grace. Mental health, I remember just feeling like very low, like why don't I have a job? It was like June. And I was like freaking out. I was like, you don't deserve to go out. So I was like staying inside my room. And I look back and I'm like, I just wasted so many days. And obviously financials is always, like if we're being real, that's a real life issue. But as long as you're dedicating a certain amount of hours to, and I would say you need to start applying like now. It's never too early, especially when you think about the interview process. Some jobs have 3 to 4 rounds or even more these days, which, you know, is interesting. So I would say to start now sooner rather than later.
Okay. Sort of a related question. What do companies usually look for in the hiring process in this field? I know writing skills was expressed. Are there other qualities that would set someone apart? And Christina, I might ask you this as sort of related to your experience as a collegiate athlete. Is there
Mhm.
anything in particular that you think were able to foreground skills wise or experience wise when you were first getting positioned?
Sure, definitely. I think there's components to me being, and being a soccer player and that have ingrained in me as a student athlete, like always being on time, if not early. I feel like the interview process, and I know I was not in college during COVID, but the interview process has it's interesting that you asked this, Patricia, because we're actually looking to hire more of a entry level person on our team, and a lot of the interviews are on Zoom, and we're not used to that because our team is in the office, as I mentioned. So, there have been a few candidates who have either, dressed down, or in my industry, I know for Michael Diamond and Dhani, it might be a little bit different in working hybrid and PR. You're at a lot of events and stuff, but here we're business formal. So, we're dressed the way that you need to be dressed. So we found that we've come across some of the um, recent college grads or people that are candidates that are in college or a little bit younger that have almost like adopted a more lenient or oh well, my classes are like this, like, so I would always be dressed to the nines, for lack of better phrase, but just dressed to impress, always early, and highlighting, don't kill yourself over the stats. Don't try to memorize something that you feel might come out, in flutter words, because that could end up hurting you rather than working in your favor. But just be yourself, just be yourself. I feel like I can connect with a candidate more when they're honest and transparent. If you ask a question on a certain software or a certain term, or you don't have to be the expert on during the interview. Nobody's perfect. So almost saying, I don't know that. Could you explain that more? And being more authentic rather than, showing that you're just trying to win people over by showing that you studied the website, I think doesn't get you as far. So authenticity is key, but I think even though the workplace has transformed during the past couple of years, there are some industries that are still, you know, keeping up with how it was before COVID. So I think that's just important to note. Like, if you're ever in doubt, don't assume that things are the way that they should be. Prepared to the utmost, as efficiently and as effectively as you can, because I think that will stand out more than being mediocre.
Excellent. Um, a question about, so do some of you have graduate degrees or degrees beyond undergrad? Is an MBA or a master's or something like that necessary in this industry, or how might it be viewed, do you think, if someone's interested in going into a career similar to yours?
I think it's really dependent on what your goals are. First of all, let's be honest, not everyone has the disposable income or support to get a degree after a bachelor's degree because it's extremely expensive. I chose to get a master's a couple years after graduating from UAlbany, and I had to undertake that myself. There are some companies that will offer some financial assistance in in and in turn you need to stay there for X amount of years. For me, I chose to get a master's because I knew I wanted to teach one day part-time and have a second stream of income, and I've used that salary to help pay off my loans on that degree. But by no means was that degree necessarily helpful in getting any of the jobs that I have gotten.
I definitely agree with that. I do have my master's in communications as well. I think any type of um, higher education that you can get looks great on a resume. It definitely, I can't say like, oh, I'm here where I am right now because I have my master's. But you know, it's part of your journey. If there's a specific track like Michael mentioned that you think it would be helpful, but you can always go back to school. I know I have people that I know that are in their 40s that are, you know, deciding to go back to school. I know it's a little harder to study when you're a little bit older, rather than being right out of college, but I think it's definitely a case by case basis. You should never turn down the opportunity if it confronts you and if you're passionate about it. Um, but I think overall, in general, you know, education is great, but the resume and the hype about where people went to college and stuff, I don't think that that is at the forefront as much as it was when I was in college. Oh, like, you know, that person goes to an Ivy League school. There are prominent individuals at every job in every industry that come from all over. So I think it depends. Your resume matters and your education and your background matter, but you know, in your job, it's how you respond to people and how you show your personality. I think definitely in our industry, we judge it based on character rather than what's on the paper.
What accomplishments do you feel set you apart in this industry? And you might reflect kind of on your own career path. What are some of the kind of turning points or accomplishments of yours that have kind of set you apart in your career journey?
I'm happy to take the lead. I don't necessarily know if it's an accomplishment or not, but I have been with my team for about 8 years, and through the 8 years, we've seen a lot of turnaround, a lot of different phases of our team, with people coming and going, and different clientele and things. And it's been rewarding to kind of be here through it all, and to you know, take ownership for being like I guess the encyclopedia of the business and just knowing all of the details. I love being that person that my teammates can rely on, and come to for all different types of items, you know, work related and not work related. Because we spend a lot of time together, as you guys know, hybrid or not, you spend a ton of time with your colleagues. So it's important to have a culture that really endorses that. And I think with me being on the team so long, I've kind of been like of a culture feeder to the individuals that I work with now, to kind of set the tone for how we treat one another and how we run the business. So I think, looking back at my younger self, I'm definitely proud of how I've got to where I am over the years.
Excellent.
I certainly think we're all humble on this panel, so no one wanted to answer. But I would say what sets me apart regarding accomplishments is what the brands I oversee have been able to accomplish while I was overseeing them. So I would definitely say that a lot of brands, especially when I was in an agency, but when we originally had them on, they weren't as known, or they didn't receive as much product placements or as much visibility and awareness. And then do strategies, understanding and being able to sort of use data to improve how that grow, and organically how people have generally wanted to support the brands just based on the strategies that we've implemented. To, you know, the previous role I was at, being able to be one of Vogue's top 10 fashion shows of that season, against brands like Louis Vuitton and Chanel, which has 7-figure budgets, and we're a brand that did not have that budget. So like huge accomplishments like that to where I'm recently at. So I think what the brands have been able to accomplish is sort of like what is, you know, what gives me satisfaction and understanding what I'm capable of doing.
Hopefully this answers the question. To be quite honest, I was distracted because I just figured out you can answer questions while we're answering questions. So I'm playing around with that
Oh,
feature.
can you see all the questions too?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Oh, great. Okay, good.
So that's what I was doing. But one thing I will say, which again, I hope this is the question, I've always been really hungry in any of my roles. I think, and this is not self-deprecating in any way, but I've always recognized that I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room. I know my strengths. I know what my weaknesses are, and what my strengths are. And first of all, if you're the smartest person in the room, you are absolutely in the wrong room. But I've always promised myself I will be the hardest working person at the table. And for me, in any role, for example, when I went to Edelman, I was working on Dove Men Plus Care. I had never worked in men's grooming before. So the first thing I did was make it a point to meet with every single men's grooming journalist that I could find all across New York City. And within 6 months was getting more press coverage than anybody else on my team. When I joined OkCupid, I took the same approach. I had never worked in house. I had never worked for a dating app. I never even worked for a mobile app. I had not been on a dating app for like years, since 2014. And I joined the company in 2019. And I met with every single person I could. And since then, OkCupid has led in power of voice, share of voice over several different competitors. I'm a team of one. I have no one above me or below me or an agency partner. And that's become a brag point because of all the press we've been getting. But again, it's just because I've always promised myself that I really want my work ethic to be what I stand out for.
Excellent. What would be one specific piece of advice you would give to a student who's wanting to go into the PR field? So maybe concrete piece of advice. Dhani, do you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it can be easy to get into your own head. I know for me, when I was first starting in the industry, I would get really shy and shy away from reaching out to people on LinkedIn or at networking events, but definitely, put yourself out there. Like a lot of the other panelists have said, don't be afraid to make those connections, because those connections could be the thing that gets you your first, second, or third job wherever you're at in your career journey.
Other thoughts on that one? Pieces of advice. Thank you.
I think, like I said before, networking and taking advantage of every opportunity that you have to meet somebody that you think could be beneficial for your career, personally or professionally. There's a lot of people that are in your network right now that you might not know where they work or, what they do for a living. You can have those conversations pretty much wherever you go. It's just kind of, and when we're in college, we like to hang out with our friends and do a lot of things more, socially. But there's these professional conversations that I wish I had more of with a lot of like the faculty. And I know I took advantage of the resources that the department gave me, but I really wish that I spent more time, kind of on the professional side of things, thinking about my career. But it's also stressful. I feel like nowadays college students are under immense pressure, like Dhani and Diamond and Michael have all said, getting that internship months before that, your next year. There's just so much that goes into it, but be patient and everything always works out. But also be prepared as possible. Like for our internship program for the summer for Rockefeller Capital Management, they had over 5,000 applicants for 25 positions. So it goes to show how rigorous and how popular the internship is, but also how rigorous the due diligence and the interview process is. So it's just imperative to, and I believe for the summer, they close the internship process in the fall prior. So be on the lookout. It's like the timeline has kind of been expedited to be a lot sooner than it was as as the years progress. So keep your eye out, but I think that's what resources like LinkedIn are for, to be able to help assist. Take it and just take advantage of every opportunity that you get, because you never know where it will land you.
Also, this is looking ahead a bit, but remember, once you're in the field and you're working, you need to PR yourself as well. I think we get so caught up in our own clients, and at least on the agency side, just speaking from my own experience, they, in a very subtle way, teach you to fade into the background. I mean, we have to wear event black when we go to events so that we don't stand out amongst attendees. We're really supposed to let other executives or clients shine, and absolutely do that. But remember that you're a brand as well, and you need to get yourself out there as well, whether that's you know, creating a thought leadership platform for yourself on LinkedIn, or submitting yourself for different awards, or joining a board like PRSA or different organizations within the industry, but make a name for yourself. If you're going to spend so much time on clients, spend some time on yourself as well.
I would also add to that, to be the team member you'd want on your team. I think Patricia had also added this part of a lot of collaboration work. So you also always want to invest what you would want invested, especially because, and you should do this either way, but the industry is very small, at least the industry that I work in. Oftentimes my the head of my department is best friends with this person at this company that I worked at before. So even if you've left a company, there's still, you know, that those connections, and you never know where you want to go. So always, you know, maintain those bridges. If you can understand there are some harsh, like difficult or challenging work circumstances, but when you can, you just want to be able to, you know, maintain those relationships. I'm keen on maintaining relationships from every company I have left, and I understand that's, you know, sort of a privilege in a sense as well to speak to the teams that I was on. But you just always want to be able to have as much people in your corner as possible. Sometimes you need recommendation letters or for a next position, or you need someone to you know, be a reference, etc. So you just want to always be thinking of, as Michael said, PRing yourself, but making sure that there's substance beneath that PRing yourself.
There's a couple of questions that seem, I'd say maybe focused on technology or technology
Yeah, I
use.
really like the AI question because
Yeah.
this came up this week. So
So the question says, how do you see the rapid advancement of AI technology impacting the PR industry in general and in your career specifically? Go ahead, Diamond. Sorry, I just want to make sure everyone knew what it was.
yeah, so actually my friend contacted me and she was just saying like, oh yeah, I used like this AI platform to create a press release. And I was like, wait, what did you do? And I was like taken aback. And then I said to her, wait, do you think this is gonna like take our jobs? And she was like, no, I'm far from worried about that. And I was just like, wait, what do you mean? And we actually had a conversation about it. So that's why I like this question. I think that we can actually utilize it. It's sort of like something, a tool, right? A lot of our jobs aren't like a lot of what AI, at least what it's currently doing. I don't know what's going to happen in 2050 or 2040. But what it's currently doing, especially how she was able to utilize it to create a press release, now she's able to sort of focus on bigger picture activities or doing activations and moments versus like things like creating a press release and working on this verbiage. Not that that's not also important, but I think we should more so see it as something to utilize versus like something to be scared of. Because a lot of my day to day with, you know, and I, you know, in 2050, again, I could be proven wrong, but I don't believe an AI can be able to do, because a lot of it is relationship management, conversations, as I said today, with like sort of this crisis situation. There's still a need for, and then creative thinking and ideas and like all of that is brought to the table. So I would see more so as a tool to be able to leverage so more so these administrative tasks or things that are more mundane, you can kind of use it as a tool if applicable.
I just have one more quick tidbit on that. I think it's great. It's scary because it's the future. I definitely think that we're all impacted by just how technology has transferred all of our industries. But I think alongside of that, definitely be smart, especially as college students, because we did recently have a candidate that came in for a few rounds of an interview. And the first interview, we received a pretty, you know, a nice thank you email, but pretty mundane. And then he came in for a second interview and we just chat GBT'd and the template came right up. So, you know, we appreciate the effort and we know that it works in your benefit, but, you know, in this instance, it didn't really work in his benefit because we were like, okay, he just typed in, write a thank you letter for a potential job opportunity. And he didn't change it enough for us to be like, oh, he really did it. And unfortunately, in his case, we had the initial template to compare and contrast. So you just need to know your audience with that. and just make sure you're smart with the technology because it's smarter than all of us. But in this particular instance, it had unfortunate circumstances because we just had something to compare it off of. So it was just a little bit more obvious that it was just plugged into the AI system. Which I'm sure you all know, and I know everyone's smart, but it's just something to note because I know as a college student, I was definitely a procrastinator too, and just thinking, and now that with these resources, it does um, help make things a little bit easier, but just make sure you're yourself in essays and things of that sort. But I think in the PR industry for press releases, like Diamond said, like it's incredible to build a foundation, especially if you have trouble writing or you have writer's block, like it definitely helps, but just being smart is definitely vital there.
Mhm. Let me ask one more question. How have you seen sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion issues intersect with sort of your experiences in the workplace? And you can speak to your own particular workplace, your own particular experience, or more generally.
I know that with my current agency and some of the other agencies that I've worked with, especially in the last couple of years, we've taken more or a larger role in making sure that we're working for and representing clients of different that come from all different walks of life and different backgrounds, making sure that they have access to the same level of service that some of our other clients do, just to make sure that, you know, we're um, keeping things equal across the board.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Like, no, you hang up first. No, you can go first.
No, so one thing that I was going to say is our firm has the Women's Initiative Network, and it's called WIN. They've recently rolled it out. Our company is over half. I think it's over like 55% of women. And it's this network that they developed that has a lot of roundtables with executive leaderships that are women and that provide their guidance to us as mentorships, as as employees and as people too. It's nice to hear, some of the questions on the panels are like, where can we find you on a 10 a.m., on a Saturday, and things like that, that like bring you back to earth to realize like, oh yeah, she's a managing director, but she's also a mother of three or a mother of four. And I think the CEO of my company, Greg Fleming, does a tremendous job of including everyone, regardless of your rank, regardless of your title. He holds CEO roundtables on a quarterly basis, and you could sign up, and you're in a room with 20 others. Some are on Zoom because of just the national outreach of my company, but when you're in here in New York, he's there present with you, and you just get to tell a little fun fact about yourself. And I know I haven't been at many jobs, but I don't think there's many profile CEOs, spending the time with associates from across the board, getting to learn about them and their families and their roles at the firm. And so I think that that's an important aspect of my job with the inclusion, male and female. There's all sorts of different groups that you can join, that our firm also has an inclusion coalition. So they're constantly doing events, community service, events for people to get together to meet one another. Because it's definitely hard after COVID and all these teams joining. As I mentioned, there's almost 100 now. When there was one, as people join and come into the office, it's important to get to know people and to be able to feel a sense of belonging wherever you work. So my firm definitely does an incredible job of that. And I think that's important to look for when looking for a job, because a job is, you have to love what you do because you spend a ton of time doing it. So culture is definitely an important aspect for me. And I think it should be for you all during your job search.
The only thing I was going to say is that for me, one thing I've been able to do in-house, so for anyone who's confused, agencies, you might have clients in-house. That means I'm on the communications team at a company. So when I joined OkCupid, one thing that attracted me to the brand was how inclusive it was in terms of the actual staff. the actual product. And it was the first company I went to where there was a openly LGBTQ plus person in the C-suite. I actually don't think I fully recognized the importance of representation and visibility before this role. I knew it was important, but until it impacted me directly, it was just a thing. It wasn't something I took super seriously, and I didn't realize the impact that it would have on me. It's had a great impact. I've been here for a while now. But one thing I've done in my role is find ways to reinvest within my own community. If we're going to be inclusive, that's great. I love that we have people in the leadership team who are openly queer and diverse. Same with every level of the company. But when I get extra dollars, I'm reinvesting that into organizations like the Human Rights Campaign. I'm bringing that organization into every single product announcement or campaign announcement that I can. And since I've been here, we've been able to partner with or donate, and partner also includes donate, to the ACLU, Black Girls Code, Fair Fight Action, Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, GLAAD, the Human Rights Campaign, multiple the NAACP, multiple organizations that tackle climate change. So I think when you're in that type of role where you have that ability to create partnerships like that, find ways to reinvest those dollars.
Okay, I want to be cognizant of our time. We are at 8:19, so we are in fact over our endpoint. So I want to thank the panelists for their energy and for sharing their wisdom. Thank Melissa for organizing us all. Thank all of the students who attended and asked questions. I don't think usually when I can see everyone, I have us all do a round of applause, but I will give you my own. And I think that is in fact our show for this evening. Thank you again. Have a fantastic rest of your week. And take care.